Hi everyone, today we'll be tackling about the chapter 4 lesson 2, which is all about what is morality, James Rachel, 6th edition by Stuart Rachels. So this group is composed of 3 members, which is Basal Fatima, Batubalunus Harvey, and Barcinas Jasmine. So before that, let's define what is morality first. So when we say morality, it is the differentiation of intentions, decisions, and actions. It also distinguishes as proper and those that are improper. The problem of definition. There are many rival theories, each expounding a different conception of what it means to live morally, and any definition that goes beyond. So Socrates, a simple formulation that how we ought to lead, is bound to offend at least one of them. And Rachels proposes a minimum conception of morality, a core that every moral theory should accept, at least as a starting point. So we have first example here. It is baby Teresa. So baby Teresa is one of the anencephalic infants, which is babies without brains. They don't have cerebrum and cerebellum, and the top of the skull are missing. But they have a brainstem, thus autonomic functions, breathing, heartbeat, and etc. are possible. So they usually aborted in the US. Otherwise, half are stillborn and usually die within days. So this is the picture showing that an infant is have an encephalic. So the first picture, it shows the difference of a fully developed newborn and the newborn having an encephalic. So the first one, they have a brainstem but their brain is underdeveloped, and the other one is they have brainstem and also their brain is fully developed. So this is the full detail. So Florida, 1992, anencephalic without a brain, no cerebrum or cerebellum, but does have a brainstem. So autonomic functions like breathing and heartbeat goes on. So most of them are detected and aborted. Of those not aborted are stillborn. So 300 a year born, and usually they die in a few days. So they can know these babies not live long and that they will have no conscious life. So the parents here volunteered baby Teresa's for organ transplant, like her kidneys, liver, heart, lungs, and eyes, for the other children who would benefit from it. But in Florida, they have a law which is they prohibits the removal of organs until the donor is dead. So taking baby Teresa's organs out, it would kill her. So when baby Teresa died after 9 days, her organs had deteriorated and were worthless. Baby Teresa's parents volunteered her organs for transplant, but as what I've said earlier, Florida law forbids the removal of organs until the donor is dead. Baby Teresa died after 9 days, so her organs were too deteriorated to be harvested or transplanted. Surprisingly, few ethicists sided with the parents and physicians. They said that it just seems too horrifying to use people as means to other people's ends. It's unethical to kill person A just to save person B. What the parents are really asking for is, kill this dying baby so that its organs may be used for someone else? Well, that's really a horrendous proposition. The benefits argument. If we can benefit someone without harming anyone else, we ought to do so. So transplanting the organs would benefit the other children without harming baby Teresa. Therefore, we ought to transplant the organs. As in the picture, there's a quote, "Our prime purpose in this life is to help others, and if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them." So what about baby Teresa's life? Isn't being alive better than being dead? Only if being alive allows one to have life, to carry on activities and have thoughts, feelings, and relations with other people. In the absence of such things, Somewhere biological life is worthless. The argument that we should not use people as means. It is wrong to use people as means to other people's ends. Taking baby Teresa's organs would be using her to benefit other children. Therefore, it should not be done. So how is baby Teresa being used? Vague sense of use. What does it mean? Violating baby Teresa's autonomy? So baby Teresa has no autonomy to violate. She had no preferences about anything, nor has she ever had any. The argument from the wrongness of killing. It is wrong to kill one person to save another. So taking Teresa's organs would be killing her to save others. So taking the organs of baby Teresa is wrong. However, shouldn't there be an exception to the rule? So baby Teresa is not conscious. She will never have a life. She is going to die soon anyway, and taking her organs would help other babies. So should we regard baby Teresa as already dead? Perhaps we should revise our definitions of death.
For now, let's move on to the second example, which is the Judy and Mary conjoined twins. Judy and Mary are joined at the lower abdomen. Their spines are fused. They have one heart and one pair of lungs between of them. This picture shows a conjoined twins. This is the situation of Judy and Mary, that they have one heart and one pair of lungs. And in this case, without an operation to separate them, both twins would die within 6 months. But this operation will only save one of the twins. This would save Judy, but Mary would die. But their parents refused the permission for the operation, but courts give permission, so that Judy lived and Mary died. To give the full detail of this case, on August 2000, woman discovered carrying twins joined at lower abdomen, and this is Judy and Mary. So Judy is the stronger, was providing blood for his sister, which is Mary. Some sets of conjoined twins is doing well, but in the case of Judy and Mary, they have only 6 months of life expectancy, and the only hope of these twins is to have an operation to separate them. But sad to say, this operation will only save one of the twins, and that will save Judy. But Mary would die immediately because Mary cannot sustain his life. And their parents decide to refuse permission to operate, as this hasten Mary's death, and believe that if it is God's will that both of our children should not survive, then so be it. But the hospital believed that it had an obligation to save one of the infants, and got the courts to agree to operation to separate them. And then the operation was successfully done. Judy lived and Mary died because Mary cannot sustain life without the missing part of his body organ. The argument that we should save as many as we can. So there is a choice, save one or let both die. If we are in that situation, what was the better choice to choose? Save one or let both die? So it is clearly we need to prepare to choose save one. At least we didn't let both twins die in that situation. But the parents' perspective believe that if it is God's will that both twins will not survive, they accept what will happen, just don't make operation to separate them. But hospital believe that they have an obligation to save at least one of them. In this situation, argument comes in. For me, doctors, they believe that it is their responsibility to save one infant and have the ability to do that. While in the parents' perspective, they only believe and trust God if their babies will survive or not. The argument from the sanctity of human life. All human life is precious because it is God's gift to human, regardless of age, if it is baby, child, adult, or old. The race of life, if they are rich or poor. Social class, like indigenous people or black color or white color, life is still given a value. The prohibition against killing innocent human is absolute. Mary is an innocent human being, therefore she should not be killed. But in that situation, Mary doesn't have a chance to live long life because she only depends to his brother Judy. And if they will not be going to separate, they will both die. Sanctity of life can't do more extent of life of Mary. Human life should be given a value and sacred because it is God's given. In that case, Mary doesn't have a chance to live long life, instead to sacrifice for the sake of Judy, because Judy is the one who have the ability to survive in life. However, Mary would not be killed during the operation but merely separated from Judy. Her death would be due to her body's inability to sustain her life. Perhaps it is not always wrong to kill innocent human beings if the innocent human has no future because she is going to die soon no matter what, and she has no wish to go on living, perhaps because she has no wishes at all. And if this killing will save others who can go on to lead full lives.
The third example, Tracy Latimer, 12-year-old victim of cerebral palsy killed by her father with exhaust fumes while the rest of the family were at church. Tracy weighed less than 40 pounds and was described as functioning at the mental level of a 3-month-old baby. Robert Latimer was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Tracy Latimer, a 12-year-old victim of cerebral palsy, was suspected that killed by her father. Did Mr. Latimer do anything wrong? And wasn't killing her an act of mercy? Here are the full details about the 12-year-old Tracy Latimer, her father, and what will happen to her father was a 12-year-old in Saskatchewan who had cerebral palsy or brain disease that leads to muscle malfunction. In 1993, her father, Robert Latimer, killed her, piped in exhaust fumes into pickup cab. She weighed less than 40 pounds. She had mental level of 3-month-old baby, nutrition via feeding tubes, rods in back, bed sores, leg cat, and flopping around. She also had major surgery on back, hips, legs, and more surgery planned. Difficult to control her pain. Her mother was relieved to find Tracy dead. The local jury and judge wanted to be lenient, 1 year in prison and 1 year probation. But Supreme Court overruled and sentenced him to mandatory 25 years in prison, and her father was still in prison. The argument from the wrongness of discriminating against the handicapped. Let's sort first what is handicap. Handicap, having a condition that markedly restricts one's ability to function physically, mentally, or socially. Handicapped people should be given the same respect and the same rights as everyone else. Tracy is one of the people who are handicapped. Tracy was killed because she was handicapped. Therefore, killing her was wrong. However, Tracy was not killed because of her cerebral palsy, but because of her pain and suffering and because there was no hope for her. Slippery slope argument. If we accept any sort of mercy killing, we will slide down a slippery slope, and in the end, all life will be held cheap. Where will we draw the line? What about other disabled people, the elderly, and the infirm, and other useless members of society? One of the examples of the slippery slope argument is legalizing prostitution is desirable because it would cause more marriages to break up, which would in turn cause the breakdown of the family, which would finally result in the destruction of civilization. Beware of slippery slopes. This kind of argument is all too easy to abuse. If you are opposed to something but have no good arguments against it, you can always make up a prediction about what it might lead to, and no matter how implausible your prediction is, no one can prove you wrong. reason and impartiality. Reason and impartiality are justification for an action or an event. Equal treatment of all rivals or disputants or fairness. Moral judgments must be backed by good reasons. Morality requires the impartial consideration of each individual's interest. Moral reasoning. First is, what is moral reasoning? Moral reasoning applies critical analysis to specific events to determine what is right or wrong and what people ought to do in a particular situation. We cannot rely on our feelings no matter how powerful they might be. Our feelings may be irrational and may be nothing but products of prejudice, selfishness, or cultural conditioning. Our decisions must be guided as much as possible by reason. The morally right thing to do is always the thing best supported by the arguments. These are to tell if an argument is really good. So how can we tell if an argument is really good? First, get the facts straight. And the last is, bring moral principles into play. Are they justified and are they being correctly applied? The requirement of impartiality. First is, each individual's interests are equally important and no one should get special treatment. The last is, if there is no good reason for treating people differently, then discrimination is unacceptably arbitrary. Members must ensure that their professional judgment is not compromised and cannot reasonably be seen to be compromised by bias, conflict of interest, or the undue influence of others. The minimum concept of morality. Morality is at the very least an effort to guide one's conduct by reason, that is, to do what there are the best reasons for doing, while giving equal weight to the interest of each individual affected by one's decision. The conscientious moral agent. Conscientious moral agent is the principle concerning the distribution between right and wrong, is concerned impartially with the interest of everyone affected by what he or she does, carefully sifts facts and examines their implications, accepts principles of conduct only after scrutinizing them to make sure they are justified, is willing to listen to reason even when it means revising prior convictions, and is willing to act on the results of this deliberation